Hey everyone, welcome to Design, Create, Inspire with me, Bryn Young. Thank you for joining me today. I am talking to you all about the frustrations and the pain points of working on a remodel. It could be a new home, it could be an addition, it could be any of that, but really working through the design and construction process and everything that comes into it and why it can be such a difficult process for so many people. This may be for you as a homeowner if you are starting a new one. This could be you as an architect and you are, just wanting to kind of understand that it can be a tough situation. So I'm going to give you some tips if you're an architect, like how you can maybe help ease the pain of your client. But I'm just going to go through these like step points, 9 steps of really like how, the different pain points essentially that can come in through this process, and hopefully how to ease it a little bit. Sometimes it can be frustrating. I know that when we're starting the process with a new homeowner, it can come with so many excitement, like so many exciting emotions and excitement and, okay, what are we up against? And during the process, which can be a fairly long process, there's a wide range of emotions. So I am going to kind of just like take you through some of those, know that they're normal, kind of know what to expect, and a little bit of tips of like how you can kind of ease that pain. So building a new home or remodeling your existing home is notorious for being an unpleasant experience. I mean, there's tons of HGTV shows. I know it's dramatized, it's a little bit of, it's not real necessarily, but there's always a hiccup, especially if you're remodeling an existing home that's older. I will not tell you how many times we've opened up a wall and found something completely unexpected. And so I always tell my clients when we're first starting, like, just expect the unexpected. You have to be flexible, you have to be kind of willing to navigate with the timeline, with the budget. There's got to be these like parameters because things will come up. So by creating these expectations early on, it helps ease it so it's not as painful when things do come up. So, with designing a new home, especially if it's like your own home and you're really excited about it, usually this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience some people have, is designing their dream home, and it does come with a lot of decisions. It comes with a lot of time, and it's usually one of the biggest investments that you will ever make in your life. And so just those things alone is enough to make it feel overwhelming and full of emotion, right? So there are ways that we can make it a little less painful and actually enjoy the experience, because it is a really amazing experience that down the road, once you're living in that home, once you're sitting in your master bed, drinking your coffee and looking out the view, and that's perfectly designed exactly where it's supposed to be designed so you can enjoy that view right there, and the sun is coming in, you're gonna be like, okay, that was all worth it. But sometimes it takes a minute to get there. So let's go over my kind of pain points and some things that we can go kind of like help you with it. So the first one I want to talk about is cost. Like I said, this typically is one of the biggest investments people will make in their lifetime, is buying a house or, buying a property and building a house. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. It's usually one of the biggest investments people will, invest in. Now, this is something that is your home. You spend 90% of your days inside, statistically, Now that we're working from home, people are spending more time at home in general. And our home should be an oasis. Our home should be somewhere where we feel good, we feel at peace, we feel calm, we're not stressed. And so creating an amazing home of yours, especially if you're designing a custom home and it's exactly you, that is, what's the word? Priceless. That is a priceless experience. But that experience is usually experienced once you are living in the home. And so when you're going through the process and it's a little less tangible, the cost and everything can start to be overwhelming. So it's really important to set up a realistic budget. I'm going to have a whole other episode just on budgets, just on construction budgets, just on architecture budgets, all that stuff. So, keep an eye out for that. This one is just going to be overview, but I highly recommend putting together a realistic budget, talking to a contractor, talking to an architect about that to make sure that what you really want will fit within your budget, or what your budget is, so that you can curate what you need, what you want based on that budget. So having a realistic understanding. Now it's important, create some sort of contingency. So add on 10, 20% to that as a little bit of a buffer, because there will be situations where, who knows, price of lumber goes up. There's not available things, and so you have to switch to a different window company that's going to be 10% more. There are unexpected things that come up. If you are designing to your exact budget, you will get in pinch points. So create some sort of contingency and know that there's going to be times where there's going to be certain unexpected costs that come up. And there's a lot of costs that go in. There's hard costs, soft costs. There's costs. People usually will be like, okay, this is our budget, and it's okay. Does that figure permitting fees, consultant fees, any sort of site fees for grading, anything like that? It's like, oh no. So okay, so let's start from here. So there's a lot that goes into this. So just have a really good understanding of what that looks like before you get started, so you don't get too overwhelmed or underwater. There's a lot of projects that will end up not going through once they're almost ready to start construction because of cost. So have this really good understanding. Okay, number 2, a lack of understanding of the actual process of design and the lack of vocabulary needed to explain what it is you really want. So this is from like a client's point of view, is if you've never gone through this process, which 90% of people who are building up a custom home have not, I would say, there is a lack of understanding of what that process actually looks like, and how to verbally communicate what it is you want or what it is you need, all that stuff. So educate yourself, I guess, is what I would say. Go, I have a video all about the design process I take you through, but also communicate with whoever you're working with. Hire a great architect that will walk you through the process step by step before you even get started, who will explain what the design process is like, who will explain when your decisions need to be made versus when the architect's decisions are made, when the contractor's decisions are made, what that construction process looks like. So talk with a good contractor who's really going to talk to you about that process, about how there are times where there's delays. There's times where there's maybe no one on site working and you're walking around like, why is nobody working? What's happening here? There's times like that. And so when you set yourself up with these expectations because you understand the process, it will help ease your frustration so much. Number 3, time. So time is a big one. I will have potential clients reach out, and let's say it's July, and I say, okay, well, that sounds great. What's your schedule? Well, we want to get started right away. We want to be moved in by like January, February. Well, that will not happen. And I'm talking about for like, a full like basically new home and stuff. So that's not a realistic timeline. And so those are red flags, which I try to educate on what that timeline should look like. But there will just be clients sometimes that don't believe, or they believe that they can expedite the timelines and get things done when they want. Fine, I understand there's things in life that happen, like maybe a baby's coming, or you have to be out of your house by a certain time, and so you have this really strict deadline, or funds are coming in at a certain time. But when you are stuck at such a strict timeline and you don't give yourself enough buffer, you end up running into a lot of headache and a lot of cost. You have expedited fees, expedition fees, fees for expediting. You have, for everything, materials, for consultant fees, all that sort of thing, for permitting. But then you also just run into tight things, okay? Then everyone's stressed out. The contractor knows they need to get done by next week, but they know realistically it's gonna take 2 weeks, but then you have the expectation that it's gonna be 1 week, and then everyone's frustrated and it just snowballs. So having a really good, realistic schedule, sorry, baby's crying in the background, and timeline is important. Now again, this, if you've never built a home and you're looking to build a home, you might not even understand what this is. And so talk to an architect or talk to a contractor about what their schedules look like, what the current permitting process looks like, what the current construction timeline looks like based on when materials are available, all that good stuff. So just a lot of good communication up front. Number 4, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made in this process, and that can feel really overwhelming. It can be exciting, but it can also feel overwhelming, especially once we have the overall architectural design, and now we're starting to get into the details, like the interior details or just details in general. It's a lot. I have a design decision worksheet that I send to my clients based on our home that gets so minute. You're picking the paint color of the doors, of the walls, of each room, of everywhere. You're picking the finishes, you're picking the tiles, you're picking the, what the roof materials are, you're picking what the flooring is going to be, not only what type of flooring, what color it's going to be, where it's going to be located, all these things. There are so many design decisions that go into a home that it can instantly feel overwhelming. So this is why an architect is amazing to help you with this, but also an interior designer. Interior designers are saints. The amount of design decisions that they make is incredible. And I love working with interior designers because it elevates a home to that next level, because all those little decisions can be made without a homeowner just being like, oh, I don't know, fine, just go with this, and being, last minute quickly having to decide, or not really knowing and then just going with the wrong decision. So there's a lot of decisions. So my advice to help keep it underwhelming is to hopefully if you work with an architect or interior designer, they give you a nice package like I'm talking about, this worksheet, so that you can detail out all of these design decisions and try to make them as early as possible. The earlier, the better, before you've even started construction, because then you can order on time. You can make sure that all the materials are in on time or what you need. So you're not having to quickly make a last minute decision. So also hire an interior designer. If you don't want to be responsible for making all those decisions, you're still going to have to make a lot of decisions, because the interior designer is not just going to do everything, but they're going to curate it to give to you so that you can then make a decision. All right, number 5, lots of research. Likely, if you are starting the process of building or designing your new home, you're doing a lot of research already because it's exciting and you're into it and you're looking at Pinterest or Instagram or social or wherever, all of these different ideas of what you want to do. But this can also start to feel, again, overwhelming. It's kind of like going in with like the design decisions is there's a lot that needs to be done. And if your architect says to you, okay, these are 3 different roof materials that we are looking to do. Do you have a preference? And you're like, oh, I have no idea. And then you go start doing a bunch of research. So I recommend, yes, do research, be informed, definitely, but rely on your professionals that you have hired for their expertise, and that's why you have them. So refer it back maybe. Well, what would you recommend for this style house? What would you recommend for this slope of roof in terms of like what type of roof material? What would you recommend for this climate? What's most sustainable? You can ask your architect questions to help you make informed decisions without feeling that overwhelm of having to completely research everything yourself. So yes, there's a lot of research involved, but you can lean on these professionals to help you out. And this leads right into number 6 is what professionals should you even be using? This is something that can feel overwhelming or can kind of feel like you don't even know where to start. Because you're kind of like, okay, well, I want to do this. What do I just hire a contractor? Do I just hire an architect? How does that work? Like, where do I even start? And so I would recommend first starting with an architect. Talk to an architect. If you go and you talk to a contractor, it's awesome because they have an idea of costs and stuff, but I would tell you probably 99% of the time that contractor is going to say, well, I don't have anything to look at, so I have no idea what to price it at. Go talk to an architect first. So you'll come to an architect, you'll tell us, this is roughly what the scope of work is, what we're wanting to do, this is our rough budget, this is our timeline, whatever information you have, and then we can start discussing the process. We can start telling you, okay, based on that information, you'll likely need these professionals, whether it's a structural engineer, a contractor, a landscape architect, a civil engineer, a surveyor, all those things. We can help guide that. So definitely start with an architect and then kind of branch out from there, because that can really be beneficial. So yes, what professionals to use, how to navigate that, how to set up those contracts, that can start to feel really overwhelming. But if you kind of just start narrow, start small, and then move it from there and use that guidance from the architect, that will really help you. Okay, number 7, dealing with delays and cost overruns. This is a part of the process, and this is usually what can be the most stressful. And this is why early on I say be a little flexible and have a contingency in your timeline and your budget, because stuff like this comes up. And it is hard as the architect or as the contractor, because the last thing we want is for there to be cost overruns or time delays or anything like that for our client. Our goal, as in everyone's goal in the project, is to make a smooth, amazing process of, design and construction, to design and build this amazing home for you. So everyone's goal is the same, but when you start dealing with cost overruns or delays, it can start feeling like not everyone's goal is the same. And so it can be really stressful. And sometimes it's hard as the architect to come in and say, hey, the permitting is taking 3 months longer than we expected. And they're still delayed down at the city. And that can then make the client frustrated because now they're still delayed. And so the point of me saying all of this is that sometimes there's only so much we can do to prepare for it, but just be patient when it happens. Open up the communication. Is there anything I can do? Is there any way to streamline it? Is there anything, ask questions of course, but then know that if you have hired a good architect and you've hired a good contractor, they are trying their best to get you into your home as quickly as possible with, creating a beautiful product. So the goal is the same, and just know that there are going to be times where you're going to run into these hiccups. Number 8 is compromising what you really want because of cost or availability or codes or local restrictions or anything like that, any prohibiting factor that is limiting what your dream house is. This can be a struggle for a lot of people. This can be really frustrating because, like I say, if you're only doing this once, you want exactly what you want. But sometimes there's things like code that literally will not allow us to do what it is you want to do. There's things like zoning where we can't build that big, or we can't design that all the way to the setback, because we have setback restrictions, or we have square footage limitations. And there's usually the client that's saying, well, I can get away with it. We can figure it out. But that's hard. That's hard on everybody. And so it's really important to know that sometimes there is compromise that has to be done in order to get you such a wonderful outcome, such a wonderful home. But you have to be a little flexible. So during our design process, we work as hard as we can to get you exactly what you want. But sometimes that morphs as you go. And I will tell you that once you are in that space, it will be everything that you wanted and more. You just have to know that during the process, there can sometimes be frustrating moments where you're like, no, I really, really, really want this. And then you have to compromise and do something a little bit different. So be flexible, be open, be understanding when stuff like that happens. Okay. Now, number 9, this is a more generalized, make sure you do this in order to relieve any frustration and pain point in the whole process. Number 9 is keep the end goal in mind. So whenever you're running into a thing or whenever you're feeling super frustrated, just remember it's not going to last forever, and keep that end goal in mind. Whether that's, like I said in the beginning, of sitting in your bed, drinking coffee, looking out that window that you've perfectly curated to let that eastern sunlight in and the ocean breeze, and you can see this one tree that is your tree in your house. And this is a moment that no one can take from you, and you have specially curated by designing your own custom home. Keep that moment in mind when you're dealing with a delay in material, or when you're dealing with a design decision that you're so frustrated with and over. Remember that it won't last forever, and one day you will have those moments that you have beautifully designed. So always keep the end goal in mind. And remember, we are all in it to have the same end goal. We are in it to have you experience that. And the contractor wants to make sure it's perfectly, built so you can experience it. So we are all in it together to help try to ease this process, to make it a wonderful experience without making it frustrating, full of pain. So we're in it together. Find yourself a good team, find yourself good professionals to help you along the way. If you are an architect or a professional, make sure you openly communicate these things with your client so they are aware, they know what to expect, and then everyone has the right expectations along the way. Enjoy the process. If you are designing your own custom home, congratulations. It's such an amazing experience that is a really wonderful thing to get to enjoy. So thank you so much for joining me today on Design, Create, Inspire. Don't forget, I will be having episodes all about construction costs. That goes more details about like the architecture process, all that good stuff. So definitely check out my channel to see if you want to dive deeper into any of those topics. All right, I will see you all next week. Have a great day. Bye.